This is Christian Book Blurb, brought to you by author and songwriter Matt McChlery. Get a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the lives of some of your favourite Christian authors, hear about their books and faith. Also, why not check out my website, mattmcclery.com. Hello and welcome to Christian Book Blurb, where we like to encourage you in your discipleship one book at a time as we meet some amazing Christian authors and learn about their books, their lives, and their faith. I'm your host, Matt McChlery. Thanks for joining me for this episode today. Now, on today's show, I'm going to be talking to the author Chip Kendall all about a new series of books that he has just launched. So let's welcome Chip to the show. Hi, Chip.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you with us here today on Christian Book Blurb. Now, you have just recently written a series of books. You didn't just do one, you did 4. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, the Level Up series.
Yeah. So why have you written them and what's it all about?
Oh, wow. So I've been doing ministry in schools, both primary schools and secondary schools here in the UK for 25 years. I know my accent makes you think I'm not from here, but I've actually lived here a long time in the UK. And my kids, I've got 3 kids, a 17-year-old lad, a 14-year-old daughter, and then a younger 12-year-old lad as well. And so my 12-year-old has just moved out of primary school into secondary school. And I had a little moment with the Lord where I was like, God, am I done with primary school ministry? And he's like, no, you got your 10,000 hours now. You're just getting started. And so I thought, well, what would it look like to lean into some of the wisdom, some of the stuff that I've had to do a bunch of research for in order to do assemblies, like school assemblies. And I thought, what would it look like to leave the book version of Chip at all these schools that I go into? And yeah, that's essentially where the idea for the Level Up series came from. Values.
Okay. All right. And so what values or themes do the 4 books explore?
Yeah. So the Level Up series is our first attempt, and we are trying to straddle a little bit the kind of top age of primary school, bottom age of secondary school. So we say like 9 to 13-year-olds. And these are the 4 books initially out. The Silent Spark, which is all about leveling up your potential. The Courage Code, which is level up your confidence. The Echo Effect, level up your respect. And the Wonder Switch, which is all about leveling up your curiosity.
Okay, interesting. And I've read The Silent Spark. I've been sent a copy of that, so thank you very much. And which is all about leveling up your potential. So let's kind of focus in on that one in particular then from the series.
Sure.
What is potential and why is it important for kids to know about it and be encouraged about it and all of that?
Yeah, well, with all of the books in the Level Up series, we've focused on a different value. So something that I've learned from going into schools all these years is that most schools will agree on a certain set of values. They might have different, expertise in science or in math or in art, but really they all agree that school is about education. It's also about helping to instill good, positive values. And I found quite early on, a bunch of the schools were always talking about potential this, potential that. And they would invite me in to talk about potential. So I had to do a little bit of research on myself, on what is potential? When's the first time somebody told me that I had potential? What does the word even mean? I found out it's a Latin phrase, potentia, which essentially means power. It's why we talk about something having a strong potency is like it smells really strong, right? Or it's got a kick to it. And potential is all about kind of discovering your secret superpower. What have you got inside you that you've got a lot of potential to do? And I did actually remember this story about when I was, I want to say like 12 years old. I was invited to go on this arts training weekend. And at the end, my teacher, his name was Jeff, he said about me in front of my parents, I can see that Chip has a lot of potential. And I was like, I gotta figure out what that is. And once I discovered what it is, it's my great joy to try to draw potential out of every single young person I meet.
And So why is it important for our kids to know they have potential, or what? Why do schools sort of have this as a value they try and instill, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask the head teachers and the teachers, but from my conversations, I really believe it's because ultimately as educators, we want to see the next generation do better than what we were able to achieve. I think I feel that as a dad with my own kids, I'm constantly doing everything I can to build a platform for them. I often tell people when I first became a dad, life became not so much about who or what am I following, and it became more about who or what am I modeling for my kids. I really want them to stand on the shoulder of giants. I want them to be able to achieve great things. And in order to do that, you've got to build a strong, mental resilience around the fact that even though you might look around the world and see all these people making these huge attempts and trying things that maybe you'd like to try as well and succeeding at it, that doesn't mean that you're unsuccessful at it. It just means that you've got to reach your full potential in your area. We have this phrase, USP, your unique selling point. We're not about selling our talents or selling our abilities, but we are about recognizing what's our unique potential that we have. I believe that all of us have been given a great gift by God. And so, to answer your question, I think the reason a lot of schools want their kids to understand that they have potential is because when you've been doing schools work for a long time, you see some of the kids, they just give up. They don't think that they've got what it takes. And a young person, especially young lads, they've got to be told over and over and over, you have got what it takes. And, I know I'm a bit biased coming from America originally here to the UK. I very quickly realized there is this kind of like pecking order that nobody wants to get above the pecking order or break out of the system, And actually, as an American, we're always drilled from a very early age. Hey, if you want to be the president of the United States, you can do it. You've got to reach your full potential. Even the U.S. Army, it's like, be all that you can be. Join the future in the Army. And so the idea is that we just want to encourage people, and British kids included, actually, you've got what it takes. And we need you. We need you to reach your full potential in order for society, in order for the planet, for the world to get to where we believe it can be.
And I guess it also ties in with the idea that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God.
Yes.
And that he has a plan and a purpose for every single person. And it's helping children and even adults discover their purpose, their potential. What has God, who has God made you to be? What has God made you to do? And sort of helping people discover that. So that's great.
I love that you just knit in the faith aspect there, because you're right. That's Psalms 139 that says that. And one of the youth leaders in our Audacious Church movement, he says, what kids need these days is anchors. They have all kinds of stuff that is trying to kind of rock the boat and say, hey, come try this out. And maybe your identity is this and that. But actually, when our identity is fixed and what God gives us in the Bible is a strong anchor, then actually that's what's going to hold us through the storms of life.
So the book itself it's a great mixture of things. I thought to myself, it kind of looked like a fiction book from the cover. And then I opened it up and it had sort of all the sort of standard introductory stuff for a non-fiction book. But there's a great mixture of things in there. And it's very sort of fast-paced and short little soundbite type stuff, which is great for the age, I guess, that you're trying to aim at. So it's a whole mix of fun facts and short stories and things to think about. But as I was reading it, I thought to myself, Chip has gone a bit easy on the Christian sauce bottle. He hasn't really put a lot of Christian sauce into this one. What was your thinking behind that? I mean, it does have some Christian content in it, obviously, which we'll come to. But what was your thinking about why you approached it in that way and structured it like this?
Yeah, I think ultimately what it came down to was I just sensed the nudge of the Holy Spirit to write this specifically with Church of England schools in mind. I go into all kinds of schools. I go into faith schools. I go into non-faith schools. I go into high schools. I go into primary schools. And what I love is when you're able to find kind of what you might call like a universal theme. And then you're able, if you're given long enough space of time, you're able to weave in the fact that actually, somebody like Obama wasn't the first person to talk about this. Actually, Jesus was the first person to talk about it. And if you can draw that out, what you're able to do is you find this timeline that already educators and parents and teachers can see. And this is a really good value, but at its core, this is a Christian value. And that's kind of what I wanted the books to reflect. I wanted it to kind of start off as a typical, educational thing. But then if you look at it for long enough, you realize, okay, hang on a second. He's referring back to stuff. I'll never forget, Matt, when I was first asked here in the UK to come into a high school, University Academy it was called. And the whole topic for the whole day with all their year nines was British values. And I laughed and I said to him on the phone, I said, you do realize I'm not British, right? And they said, no, here's the thing. We've worked it out that you've lived in the UK longer than these year nines have been alive. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. I said, I'm the best person ever to educate them in British values because I've had to learn them myself what British values are. And you don't have to dig very deep to discover that British values essentially at their root are Christian values. So, this great thing happened where I was I think I can tell this story. Yeah, I have to be careful about which stories I tell sometimes. But I was in a cathedral with just hundreds and hundreds of kids. I think it was something like 30 year sixes, 30 year six classes. So it was, just tons and tons of kids in this cathedral. And I noticed, and they're all Church of England schools, but I noticed that this one little patch of kids over on my left are all from the same school, and most of them are Muslims, but their parents have them in a Church of England primary school. And there's a whole thing we could go on about that, but I just think it's awesome that we have this great window of opportunity. And I'm not even joking, Matt. I start leading the song, and the angels cry, holy, because that's what they booked me to do. They booked me to come in and lead worship at this year six leavers, service. And all of the Muslim kids start like looking at each other. The lads are in the front row and they're just kind of like not joining in. And then I see this one little girl with her hijab on and everything. Just take a look, everybody around her. She's like, forget about this. She puts both her hands in the air and she's singing along with all the words. And I thought, that's what I'm talking about. Even if this whole service is just for that one girl to experience the presence of God in a cathedral, singing a worship song to Jesus, then it makes it all worthwhile. So that's really my target audience that I'm looking at is the ones who need, we could call it re-education. What are British values?
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. That's good. And I love how you've kind of linked sort of starting off where everyone's at sort of with a value and then sort of digging a bit deeper, expounding that. Just for some of our listeners, if they want to kind of find out more, I guess, about values and how the values of the sort of the West, in a way, are actually birthed out of Christianity. There's a great book by Glenn Scrivener, I think that's how you say it, called The Air We Breathe. I don't know if you've come across that book. That's talking all about sort of that kind of stuff, but more for adults rather than for the kids who you're reaching out to. But that's great. Speaking of digging a bit deeper, in your book, The Silent Spark, Leveling Up Your Potential, you talk about a chap called George Washington Carver. Now, I must admit to my listeners that just before this started, you pointed out that in the notes that I typed up, I'd only just put George Washington. It's not George Washington, it's George Washington Carver. They are two different people. What can you tell us about him?
No, it's easily confused. Don't worry about it, Matt. It happens most of the time when I go into schools and I say, who's heard of George Washington Carver? What did he do? And they'll be like, he was the first president. I'm like, that's George Washington. George Washington Carver was alive during the time of the Proclamation of Emancipation, which was when it was declared pretty much overnight, anybody who was a slave could no longer be a slave. And so George Washington Carver started his life as a slave. But when this moment happens, he's all of a sudden given a patch of ground. He's given a field by his now boss, formerly slave owner. And the only thing that he can grow in this soil, and he knows this because he's a farmer, is peanuts. It's the only thing he can grow. And so, I've gone to several different sources for this. There's loads of biographers, autobiographers. There's autobiographies, I should say. There's also stuff on Wikipedia. Anyway, a lot of it points to the fact that it came to a head when he got down on his knees and he prayed to God and he said, God, you created the peanut. What can I make from the peanut? You know the potential that's inside the peanut. Help me as I discover different uses of the peanut. He went on to find over 100 uses of the peanut. At the time,
Wow.
It was really important to try to find new uses of the peanut because the soil was not good. They needed to kind of retrain the soil. And a lot of people knew what you could do with cotton, but it ruined the soil, cotton. And so he started to look into this. And he goes down as one of America's greatest scientists, and they've named universities after him and everything, because he discovered over 100 uses, including stuff like peanut oil, peanut rubber. He didn't invent peanut butter, but he did invent peanut shampoo. And all kinds of stuff that he came up with. And he was asked about this. I tell about it in my book. I wish I had time to read the whole story, but he was asked about this by like a governor or somebody like that. And they said, how did you come up with all these uses of the peanut? And he answers and he says, well, I prayed to the God who created the peanut. And he gave me this desire to do this. And here it is. When one congressman asked how he had learned so much, Carver simply said, from an old book. What book? The man asked. The Bible, Carver replied. Does the Bible talk about peanuts? Carver smiled and said, no, but it tells about the God who made the peanut. I asked him to show me what to do with the peanut, and he did. I love that. Isn't that great?
That's great. That's great. And a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question here. How does that story go down in schools that are sort of nut-free zones? Are you allowed to tell that story?
Nut-free zones, yeah. Thankfully, it's just in a book. It doesn't have any traces of nuts.
Great. And then also in the same book, you've got a section called A Lesson from the Greatest Creator. So this is now sort of further on in the book. As you were saying, you started with values and now you're kind of unpacking it a bit. So where you talk about creation, and what do you say here and how does it link in with our potential, which is what the book's about?
Yeah, so this is basically a little bit of a scratching beneath the surface of Matthew chapter 25, where Jesus tells the parable of the talents. The master gives servants different amounts of talents, and he sees what they're going to do with it. What he's looking for is for them to find their potential for creating not just an investment, but a return on an investment. And then, of course, the story about the guy who ends up digging a hole and he just buries it. He doesn't do anything with it. That really is the equivalent of what we're talking about in terms of not realizing your full potential. You have a seed that is sown within you. You have a silent spark, which is the title of the book. What are you going to do with that silent spark? Are you going to allow it to kind of take root and take shape and eventually have a return on that investment that's been given to you? Or are you just going to bury it and not do anything with it? So that's the kind of the point that we're drawing out. And again, like you say, trying to join it back in with the Bible. This is really ultimately where our values come from. It comes from teachings that are thousands of years old. Isn't it mad if you think if you think about it, Matt? It's like God has already given us everything we need. It's kind of up to us to do stuff with it. And we can't really build anything on top of what he's done. But what we can do is remind people of this is what God has given us. Now it's up to you to do something with it.
God's given us a peanut and we need to just find the 101 different things to do with it. Yeah, great.
Apologies to all nut-free people.
Yeah. Your books, this whole series then, the Level Up series, how do you hope children and indeed parents or even teachers might use these books?
Oh, so many different ways. We've got a whole page at the back, a couple of pages at the back of every single one of the Level Up Book series books, specifically written to parents and teachers in order to help them to help their kids level up. So for parents, we've mentioned maybe running bedtime conversations and trying to utilize that amazing window that God's given all parents of just before the kids fall asleep, giving them something to think about, something to dream about. We've given them the idea of utilizing car chats. You know, any parent knows that you've got the school run. Everybody knows about the school run, to drop off and to pick up, or in some cases you're walking with them. So we want to utilize that time spent taking them to school and picking them up to go through the book. Then we've also got an encouragement to them to celebrate growth. So when their child, demonstrates some of these values, curiosity, confidence, respect, potential, and they see it in action, go ahead and call it out for what it is and cheer them on with it. Often kids are scrutinized and they're told off and they're left feeling fear. But if we're constantly calling out greatness in them and saying, hey, that was really cool what you just did, you exercised your potential, or, you were showing genuine curiosity there. But by verbalizing it and articulating it, we're kind of helping to build that foundation for them. And then for the teachers, we've given them the idea of maybe running small group discussions off the back of reading certain sections. Teachers have already come up to me and said that they're doing this already, which is great. We talked about maybe finding the curriculum connections anywhere that there's overlap with their curriculum. We talked about finding creative response activities. Maybe they want to write or draw or present their own take on a chapter's theme. And so we're really trying to do everything we can to equip and resource parents and teachers to best use the book. You could say, let the book reach its full potential with the kids
very good.
in your care. I didn't even mean to say that.
And you also mentioned in the back of the book, you could talk something about bonus material that parents and the children can get hold of. So how can they access this? I mean, what is the bonus material?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've talked about, and again, if people want to access any of this or be first in line to find out when it's actually available, you need to go on to levelupbooks.com, levelupbooks.com. No hyphens, nothing like that. Just level up, LEVELUPBOOKS, levelupbooks.com. And one of the ideas, this came in a marketing and strategic thinking planning meeting, to do the audiobook version, right? That you could literally play it on your school run. If you're in the car driving them to school, you could just play one chapter. Each chapter, as you mentioned already, has a bunch of stuff in it. Number one, it always starts with like a fictional story. So this is like a short story that helps to illustrate what it is that we're trying to talk about in that chapter. We've got a really great quote from like an author or a scientist or somebody that is worth quoting. And then we've got a little question and answer section. And in the book itself, there's space for you to fill in the answer to each question for yourself. So that's like a whole page. That's a really fun page. And then we've got usually like another little wise quip or a little, story or a fun fact, like a scientific fact to cap off the chapter itself. So imagine putting all of that into, the quote unquote chapter form into little sound bites. So it'd be like just a short little audio exploration of that chapter. And so we want to make those super easy to access and to play. Nowadays, you can pretty much play stuff off Spotify or play it off of YouTube on your phone in the car. So, we want to have those resources available soon. I can't say they're available yet because they're not. We're still bringing out the books one by one. There's a bunch of stuff online as well. We've had some people suggest. Do you know about worshiphousemedia.com? Do you know Worship House Media, Matt?
Tell us about it.
Okay, I think we give them a page at the back of each book as well. Oh, yeah, we do. Worship House Kids is a whole resource made available when they realize that this is based in the U.S. They realize that all these mega churches, right, they're like huge. They have thousands and thousands of people in their church. They're constantly creating content for their local body, which is great. They're creating content for their local church. But there's hundreds of other churches, thousands of other churches and Christians and believers, millions, all around the world that will never see that because It's just made for their local church environment. But it would totally apply. It's like a Bible story or a scripture memory verse song or a game or like a really fun way of engaging with the Bible. And so what Worship House Media and now Worship House Kids has done is they've said, right, why don't you just have a little window on our website, super cheap, just sell your resources that you've already created for your local church for a series that you did 2 years ago and just put them on our website. And honestly, it is amazing. We've done a little partnership with them where we've got our own production company, really, called AAA, AAA something. What's it called? AAA. You might have to search just AAA. It might show up right away. Oh, yeah, AAA, Access All Areas. And that is basically all of our stuff that we've done for our local church, Audacious Church, and more. We've got something on there called Bible Story Bingo. Bible Story Bingo is so much fun. It's a great way to explore the Bible. So, yeah, I want to encourage people to make the most of all the extra resources that we made available in the books.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Chip. We are just going to take a short break. We will be back in just a moment, so stay tuned and join us after these.
If you enjoy listening to this podcast, you can help keep it on the web. All you've got to do is buy me a coffee. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/Matt McChlery to make a donation. There is a link in this episode's show notes. So go on, buy me a coffee today and help this podcast to keep supporting Christian books and authors.
Hello, welcome back to the Christian Book Blurb. I have been chatting with author Chip Kendall all about his book, The Silent Spark, Level Up Your Potential, and indeed some of the other books in the Level Up series before the break. Now, Chip, at this point in the show, we like to get to know the author a little bit better. Now, for some of our listeners, they might know you under a different name. Is that right? Have you got a stage name that some people might go, oh, it's this guy?
Yeah, well, Chip Kendall starts with a K. So if you know Chip K, then you're going way back. I used to be in a band called the Band with No Name. But yes. I tell people I went from the band with no name to the band with my name, the Chip Kendall Band. But it was still all about the name that is above every other name.
That's great. That's great. What do you do for fun?
Wow, what do I do for fun? Well, I love movies. I love cinema. I love musicals. I was the biggest fan of The Greatest Showman. Do you remember when that movie came out? The movie musical, The Greatest Showman. And I stood up in the cinema. I said to my wife, we were in South Africa. I said, that's it. I quit. I'm moving to Hollywood and I'm making musical movies for the rest of my life. I just love it. I really love to spend my time doing that. I really love baseball. So a lot of people in America will know about baseball, but over here, they're not so much. I'm a huge fan of the LA Dodgers. They actually bought my elementary school when I lived in Florida. We were in the same town where they did their spring training at the time. So grew up loving LA Dodgers, even though I'm from Florida. That explains that. I don't know. Is that the kind of stuff you're after?
No, that's great. That's great. Just baseball and living in the UK, that does present some challenges. So how do you do it? Is it like late night sort of live streams or do you hop on an airplane every now and then to go and watch your favorite team? How does it work?
Oh, man, I wish I could more and more. So essentially, softball is popular to play over here, not so much baseball. Usually the teams I want my kids to take part in are playing on a Sunday, which doesn't work because we're at church. However, Major League Baseball, MLB, have started doing stuff on iPlayer. So iPlayer started to carry some, so you don't even have to live stream. You can just watch it as and when you're ready. So I've been showing that to my boys as well. And we just play. We just go. We've got a local field here. We call it the Field of Dreams. And we go and we play baseball. Usually walk past some of their friends' houses. Say, hey, who wants to play? I've got a bunch of extra mitts and baseballs and bats and stuff. So we just make the most of it. We do what we can, Matt.
No, that's good. That's good. And it sounds like you're quite well traveled. I mean, you watch Greatest Showman in South Africa and you from America, but you're living in the UK. So you've experienced all sorts of types of foods, I imagine. have you got a particular favorite food or meal, or maybe it's like a general kind of cuisine, like Thai food or something? I don't know. What's your go-to?
Oh, yeah, that is a great question. I should ask other people that question more often. So my favorite meal, my mom will tell you, everybody will tell you, my whole life has been manicotti. Have you ever had manicotti? It's like an Italian
No.
dish. It's like large pasta shells, but they fill it with
Okay.
like 3 different kinds of cheese. It's amazing.
Wow.
Manicotti is hands down my favorite meal. Although I have started to really get into Five Guys. You know, Five Guys burgers and fries?
Oh, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my days. They've got the peanut butter milkshake. They've got everything there. I love Five Guys.
There's peanuts again coming round.
Hey, peanuts!
No, that's great. All right. Tea or coffee?
Definitely tea. I don't drink coffee at all.
And is this tea sort of your standard British tea, or do you make your tea in a microwave like I've seen some Americans do on social media, or what does that look like?
Please forgive us, Matt. We Americans know how to take a great British tradition and just hack it to pieces. It's horrible. Even the story of the Boston Tea Party when it all gets chucked into the sea. How terrible is that? Oh my gosh. No, yeah, I don't drink that much tea. I probably drink 1 tea a week. That would be like my quota.
Okay.
It would be, yeah, just a typical British tea. I'm not picky.
So apart from that, then, if you're not drinking much tea and you don't drink coffee, what do you drink?
Oh, I love water. I drink so much water, and I also drink a lot of juice. Whenever it's like the option of coffee or juice, I always choose juice. And vitamin C.
Okay.
I just love it. I go for a run every morning. I run about 8 kilometers, and nothing hits me better when I get back in, other than one of those, like, you know, those. What do they call them? The thing you put in the water, and it's all your vitamin C that you need for the whole day. It's just awesome.
Oh yeah, those fizzy things.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Have you got? Well, you've mentioned some family. What can you tell us about family and where they're at? What stage are you at, and all that kind of thing?
Yeah. So my parents, when I was 12 years old, my family left Florida and we moved to Jerusalem, to Israel.
Wow.
They still live out there. My parents are there. We're not Jewish, but we tell people we have Jesus in our hearts and he's Jewish. And then my sister is moving out to California. So she's out there. I've got 3 nieces there in California. My wife's sister moved to South Africa, which is why we're constantly going out there. So I've got 3 more niece and 2 nephews there, South Africa. And then my wife's other sister lives up in Newcastle. Her mom's up there as well, like Newcastle upon Tyne area. And and now we're here in Manchester, just absolutely loving it. You know, my kids, they try to sound American and they can't really do it. They're getting a little bit better as they get older, but it's just so hilarious. And then I go to America. They don't even think I sound American. I'm like,
I know.
what?
You get caught in the middle.
I?
I know. Yeah. Do your kids sing with an American accent? Because I've come across British kids here, and then they're not a stitch of American in them, but you know, they watch TV and YouTube and all this kind of thing, and you hear them sing, and you think, oh my word, you know, that's full on American accent. What's going on? So can your kids sing with American accent or not really?
Yeah, no, when they go into acting mode, they can do a really great American accent, or when they're going into singing mode. And now what I'm waiting for, Matt, because this K-pop stuff that's so popular, I'm just waiting for all kids everywhere to start sounding Korean when they sing.
Oh, wonderful. Great. What is the Holy Spirit doing in your life at the moment? It might be sort of personal to you, or it might be kind of, I don't know, what you might observe going on around you. What's happening there?
Oh, it's a great question. So I've just come back from a 12-day trip to Jerusalem, to Israel, and we toured. It was a load of other Christian musicians and worship leaders, some of which you might recognize their names, but I won't tell you who it was. But I just felt so starstruck the whole time. It was like being on the celebrity bus going through the Holy Land, which is awkward for me because I grew up out there. So I know all the areas. And in some cases, I know as much as the tour guide, but I'm just letting them do their thing. And I really connected with a guy named Chris, and Chris and I were chatting, and he reminded me of something that God said to me. And as I began to talk to him, I really sensed the Holy Spirit. Basically, this idea of consumerism versus consummation. So I won't go into the whole story, but essentially what it comes down to is I was on the way back from the park to our house with my oldest son. I can't remember how old he was at the time, probably about 13, 14. And we were chatting, and I said to him, why don't we just take this time, a bit like your question, just see what the Holy Spirit is saying to us right now. And, we'll compare notes when we get close to the house, but let's just walk in silence. And straight away, I sense the Holy Spirit say, if you could bottle up your energy and sell it, you would. And I was like, yeah, of course I would. That's what everybody says to me. I wish I could bottle up your energy and buy it. And he goes, I want you to look up the difference between the words consume and consummate. Consume and consummate. And, you'd think that they come from the similar root, but they don't. They're totally different words from totally different sources. To consume and be a consumer at its core means to destroy. That's what it means to destroy, which makes sense because you drink a bottle of Coke and maybe you recycle the bottle, but the Coke's all gone. But consummate means to bring, to destroy, or to bring. And here's what I felt the Holy Spirit was saying to me, and it's still to this day, and it's encouraged my friend Chris and me again as I was saying it to him, is that God is far more interested in what we bring to the table than he is in how people use us, how people best utilize us, you could say, or how people best, consume our they even call it content, don't they? The content that we put out there. So, Matt, I love the fact that you included that question. Ultimately, I believe your heart isn't for people just to kind of listen to these podcasts and what can we kind of get out of this. What you're doing is you're saying, here's what I can bring before you. Here's what I can bring to the Father as an act of worship. And then he can use it however he wants. And since that day, I've always asked myself the question, whenever I feel the sense of like, oh, I've got to sell this, or I've got to get my foot in the door, and I've got to start that conversation, start that relationship. No. God says, don't ask the question, how can they use you? Ask the question, what do you want to bring to the table? So anyway, hope that encourages you. That encouraged me. Big time. That's what I feel the Holy Spirit saying.
That's lovely. Thank you. We're just sort of coming down to land. Before you go, can you just tell us where people can find you on social media? Have you got a website? Where can people buy your books?
Yes. So the books are available on levelupbooks.com. We also have an Instagram handle at the moment, which is just levelup_loud at levelup_loud. And that's how you can find us on Instagram. But really the best way to do it is through the website, levelupbooks.com. So thankful to have a really great publishing company behind us, Malcolm Downs, Sarah Grace, a lovely lady named Lydia. And what they're helping us to realize is that actually one of the best USPs of these books is that the font is this award-winning dyslexic-friendly font. And we really want to encourage kids. I don't know if you've been following any of the stuff that's happening off the back of the book, The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt. But basically, we want to jump on this kind of cultural moment of, instead of giving your kids more screen time, which has been proven to be not making them smarter, let's put it gently like that, and draw them back to books, especially books like this with pictures, with a dyslexic-friendly font, with the spaces for them to fill in their own answers to the questions, and really good talking points, starting points, so that long-term, these kids actually do understand genuine education and real education, and they develop a heart for that, and they reach their full potential. That's really what we're trying to do.
That's great. Chip Kendall, thank you so much for joining me here on the Christian Book Blurb. It's been fantastic chatting with you, and yeah, hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Yes, thanks so much, Matt. Bless you, man.
And thank you as well for listening to this episode of the Christian Book Blurb. Don't forget, the podcast drops twice a month on the 1st and on the 15th. So it won't be long before I'm back again chatting to another Christian author all about their books and their life and their faith to help you in your discipleship, one book at a time. So like the podcast, follow the podcast, comment on the podcast, do all those wonderful things. And I look forward to having the pleasure of your company again really soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to Christian Book Blurb with your host, Matt McChlery. Do give it a like, give it a share, and let your friends know all about it. We do hope to see you again soon on another Christian Book Blurb.